elemental sustainability is a really important issue. Really, we think about being sustainable in terms of carbon, so we think about trying to be carbon neutral, but we don't think about being neutral in the use of all elements of the periodic table. So this is some concepts that we've started to develop at the University of York, as well as other places around the world. And what we want to try and do is actually guarantee all elements in the periodic table, not just for the current generation, but future generations as well. So we don't want to do things today that will stop our children using these elements as well. So that's a really, really important concept. And why is it an important issue? Well, many of the elements that we have in the periodic table are actually being used at a very quick rate. So elements such as indium, in actual fact, if you look at the known reserves of indium, there's only about 13 years of known reserves of indium left in the ground. We're not actually destroying the indium. We're not getting rid of it. What we're actually doing is dispersing it through the technosphere. So we're taking it out of the ground, where it's in nice concentrated seams often, these elements, and we're dispersing it through our modern society. So how many of you actually have a mobile phone at home that's in a drawer, not being used? You know, put your hand up if you have a mobile phone that you've got an old one that you're not being used. Okay, so pretty much everybody here put their hand up saying that they had a mobile phone in their drawer at home. Well, in actual fact, these mobile phones probably contain more precious elements than you would find in concentrate. So you spend a huge amount of resource digging this concentrate out of the ground, making a huge hole in the ground, when in actual fact, if you were able to just recycle the elements in your mobile phone, it would be much more efficient. So we need to think about where we get our elements from in the future. So for this talk, I'm really going to focus a little bit about the platinum group metals, and what this periodic table doesn't show is actually how much of these elements are recycled. Okay? So this just talks about what the current rate of use is and how much we have left in the ground. So if we look at recycling rates, or current recycling rates of these elements, in actual fact, the platinum group metals are pretty good. We're actually pretty good at recycling these elements. So that's a plus. Other elements, such as indium, we actually recycle less than 1% of this. So there's many, many elements out there that we need to think about doing more in terms of recovering and recycling these elements. Also, we need to think about where our elements come from. You may have heard of conflict minerals, so we need to really be careful in terms of where the elements come from and how we source them. And many elements, including the platinum group metals, come from specific parts around the world, and there may be political issues that stop us gaining access to these elements. So that's a really important thing to note for the future. In actual fact, where we're sat here in Europe, we don't have very many reserves in the ground. So we need to think about using other sources of elements that we may have at our disposal.